Welcome, everybody. It is time for another episode of this podcast here, the Grants and Government Contracting Podcast. Thank you for coming to hang out with us here. My name is Abraham. I'm one of your hosts here.
Yes, and my name is Lainey. I'm one of your hosts. We're really excited. March is Women's History Month, and so that's what today's episode is about. Not just women's history, but the future of women, future of women in government contracting. I think we're gonna have a lot of really cool stuff to talk about, and just dive into that. If you're joining us, I would love for you to put your name, where you're joining us from, just so we can connect. Me and Abe are both located in Georgia, so that's where we're joining y'all from today. And if you're watching back on replay, still leave us a comment. We always love to see those comments and see where you're joining us from.
Man, and I love today's topic. We're going to be talking about
Yeah.
the great wealth transfer. And did you know that in the next 5 years, women will women will own or control 70% of the wealth in the US. So
Yes.
lots of good stuff to talk about.
Yes, it's an insane number. This is something I think it's been talked about a few years, maybe like a year or two now. It's being talked about more because in the next 5 years, and it's already starting. The assets are being moved, and it's said that $34 trillion worth of assets will be in the hands of women. And I think this is just amazing news. And I think there's so many opportunities for this wealth transfer and just the future of women. So I'm really excited to dive in. Abe, you have a long background of helping support women, I feel like that's a foundation of GCA. Would you like to explain that a little bit? What you do, that's something that's kind of how you started GCA in a way. So,
Absolutely, yeah. That's really the heart of why the Government Contract Association is here. That's part of the reason why the Grants and Contract podcast is here. So when I first got into the government contracting marketplace back in 2007, 2008, um, I realized a few things. The great age of enlightenment, where there's supposed to be, equality in the workforce, supposed to be, great opportunities for women entrepreneurs and so forth. I started looking at the stats as it relates to the government contracting marketplace. And in 2008, women businesses were only winning 2.8% of contracting dollars. And I thought something is wrong with this or something is not right. And I was thinking like maybe someone should do something about it. And maybe, the SBA need to do a better job, or maybe GSA need to train the companies better, and all these different looking at somebody else to be the change, right?
mhm.
And I thought, I started reflecting about my wife. I started thinking about my daughter and the woman and the ladies in my life. And I thought, maybe that somebody is me. Maybe I need to do something about it. And it's one thing for women to uplift each other. It's another thing for men to step in and help uplift the women in our lives as well. So I decided to leave consulting and get into the government contracting marketplace to really be the change, right? Lead the change
Yeah.
and support the women entrepreneurs who are in the government contracting marketplace. So that's really part of why GCA is here. Uh, 85% of our members are women entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
and in terms of almost probably 90% of the companies that we have helped win contracts are women entrepreneurs. So it's really the heart and the core of what we do here at GCA. So if you're joining us here, we're here because it's really about you, the ladies out there. And if you are a gentleman who's joining us, you're here because we want to uplift the women in our lives as well. So today we're focused on women entrepreneurship and as it relates to government contracting. We're talking about the great wealth transfer. So if you're just joining us, that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yes, so I kind of want to dive in and give a little bit of history. It is Women's History Month. So just a little bit of history of women as a whole, kind of women in the government contracting space. So, not that long ago, less than 50 years ago, or right at 50 years ago, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act happened. And this was the first time that women were able to open credit cards without a man, have bank accounts without a man, and even that started the process of being able to own your business without having a man co-signer. So there's a lot of history, and I think it's really rich to dive into and read about. Of We've had women entrepreneurs for a long time, since before our country was even founded, but they had to have that man as like that the co-signer for them. So after that act in 1974, women started being able to actually own businesses by themselves. That's not the start of women entrepreneurs, but then really we didn't see and I didn't realize this until I started doing my research, is how young the WSB program is. So it's something that I've just always known about in my government contracting career, but it's a fairly young program. So it kind of the ideology of it happened in 2000, that women businesses needed to be represented in the government contracting space, but the actual program was not founded. It was founded in 2000, but it was not brought to fruition and started with the set asides of 5% until 2011 under the Obama administration. So fairly new. And in that time, Abe, how many times do you think that the government has actually hit their 5% set aside goals for women owned small businesses?
Um, it's very possible that they may have reached it, but all the years that I've been looking at it from because I started tracking this in 2008, I have never seen a year where the SBA, have met the goal of awarding contracts to women-owned business and meeting the 5% set-aside goal. And we're going to dive into that in a little bit in terms of really looking at the number, the data, and the WSB certification program, and the WBE, the FBE, all these other certification programs. So don't go away anywhere, because we're going to dive deep into the number, the stats, and the WSB certification program in a little bit. Yeah, but I haven't seen the SBA reach their goal any of these years here.
Yeah, so they claim that they've reached their goal 2 times. So I don't know if in 2 different years they claim that their goal has been reached. But still, I feel like if you're going to set a goal, reach it every single time. Don't just set a goal and then not reach it. I think that's something, prioritize it. And we know there's women businesses out there, there's contracts out there. So let's push that set aside goal.
Well,
Um,
Lainey, I'm going to challenge the SBA a little bit on that number, because the way they calculate the how they reach the goal is, so for example, they take the total dollar amount, the annual amount that they award to companies, they minus all of the contracts. Like if it's a $500 million project, they don't count that, because they're saying,
yeah,
oh, this project is too big, so small businesses that are women owned can't bid on these projects. So the way they manipulate the numbers,
yeah,
I would use the word manipulate, because that's not how you calculate percentages, right? If the goal is 5%, you don't deduct a $500 million project. Oh, that's too big for women businesses to bid on, or maybe $1 billion contract. Oh, we're only going to allow that for large companies to bid on. And so the way they calculate how they meet the goal is a manipulated number. And so if
yeah.
if I'm the SBA and I want to look good to Congress, right? I'm going to make the numbers look where we shine. And so I challenge the SBA to actually do the raw numbers and not a manipulated number. Because if they do based upon the raw number, they've never met the goal.
Well, I even have another challenge. The current SBA administrator she's a woman, Kelly Loeffler. She's from Georgia. I have a challenge for her. She has the next 4 years over the SBA. Let's focus on meeting, your woman-owned small business. I don't know much of her background, but I think she's a woman entrepreneur and a business owner. So as a woman business owner that's now in this great place of power, but also a place of being able to help other women, WOSBs, let's hit it all 4 years. I mean, you're a woman in the SBA. I think that's important. So I want to ask our audience before we dive in to a little bit about this. Who in our audience knows what the Great Wealth Transfer is? You've heard about it, maybe you've seen it on the news. Just kind of wanting to see if anybody here has heard about it. Just you can put a yes or a thumbs up or whatever in the chat. And Abe, have you heard about the Great Wealth Transfer?
Uh, Not until we started discussing about it. Yeah, so really, I haven't really, I didn't know that there was a huge wealth transfer.
Hmm.
So I'm looking forward to diving deeper into it.
Yeah, so we're getting some no's. So I'll kind of explain a little bit about the Great Wealth Transfer. And I heard it. I went to an event, um, and it was kind of about women entrepreneurs, women in building women wealth and stuff like that. And she talked about it, and she was like, she kind of challenged. She said, us as women have this opportunity with this Great Wealth Transfer to really change the landscape and change what wealth looks like for women. So, what the Great Wealth Transfer is, kind of an overview, it's very interesting. It's that in the next 5 years, which 2030 sounds to me like it's forever away, but it is only 5 years away, that there's different articles. So some compare it for 5 years, some compare it for 25 years, because I think the transfer will kind of be over a 25-year period, because there's going to be two transfers. So the wealth transfer is that currently men in the boomer generation are going to be passing away, or I know we've seen this too, stepping down from businesses. Maybe they're at the retirement age and that kind of stuff. So they will be transferring either their businesses to women, or when they pass away, it will either go to their wife. And then the second kind of phase of the transfer will be going down to their children. So it is said that 75% of all assets in America will be transferred to women in the next 5 years. And I've seen a couple of different numbers. The one I've seen the most is 34 trillion. I think over the course of this next 25 years, it's going to be something insane, like over $100 trillion will be transferred. And I think that's part of the phase two of being transferred down eventually to the children as well, which will be women. And this will account for 3 times the quantity that women have possessed for assets. So it's an insane number, and it's an insane transfer that's coming up. And I think it brings up this idea of, okay, women are going to be in possession of money, of businesses. What does that mean? Where do you go from that? And what change, like, we talk about that we want to be the change. What change can be made with these assets and with these businesses? So Abe, do you have any questions on this? I'm not, I don't claim to be the expert on the wealth transfer, but I told you, I am so intrigued in this. I've read so many articles on this, and I'm like, this is so intriguing to me.
Yeah, well, that's exciting, right? Because one, I know that all the ladies out there, at least the ladies in my life and all the ladies I know, you're much smarter than most men I know. You're much more astute. You're much more emotionally connected and you have greater empathy than most men that I know. And so I think I think when women have more wealth, I think the world may be a little bit better off because you nurture, you take care of other people around you much better than men. And so I think I love the idea of this great wealth transfer. The other side of wealth transfer, which we're going to talk about, is women building businesses and women going out there and claiming their piece of the pie, whether it's in the world of entrepreneurship or in the private sector or the government contracting marketplace in a little bit. And so we're going to talk about that as well. And so if you got questions, I see some questions. Keep your questions coming. We're going to address some of your questions in a little bit about any topic or about what we're talking about here. So if you do have questions along the way here, leave your comments or your questions in the comments area, and we'll address some of those questions as well. But yeah, I love the idea. Well, not the idea, but the reality that wealth
Yeah.
is being transferred to women, and I think that is actually good news for the world as a whole.
I think so too, because it's never been done before, and I think that some really good things can come out of it. I think another cool, I'm excited to see this percentage. I think will go up as well over the next 5 years. So in 2019, it was estimated that 29% of business owners were women. Well, that number grew in 2023, that 49% of business owners were women. So I think that number is that was a huge jump, but I think it's going to even have a larger jump for this wealth transfer because they're going to be business owners. Um, I think too, I read a survey and it was talking about why do we think this jump is coming? And do you have any ideas, Abe, of why you think this jump of women business owners over the last couple of years?
Well, I think it goes back to the natural evolution of how we have transitioned in society.
Yeah.
Uh, for many times, for long history, women are treated as chattel,
Hmm.
and where chattel means that you belong to somebody, and that a when a woman gets married, she becomes the property of the family or of the man, and that's why part of it is that's why she takes on the man's name. um, so that now today the heart behind it is not necessarily there, but the history behind it is that, right?
Yeah.
Where woman is treated as chattel, and in my own community, because I have a very um, indigenous cultural community where we live in clans, and women are treated um, to within just this one generation ago, where a family can give their daughter away to another family with her having no ability to say yes or no to it. And in that situation, she's treated as chattel. And so I think the evolution of that have gone from where women were treated as chattel. Then more recently, women have no ability to vote, to where women cannot own businesses. Now they're able to do certain things, that the disparity in terms of women in the workforce, a woman typically earns about 73 cents to what men own
Wow.
in the workforce. And then the evolution of that, where women are usually, in terms of Fortune 500 companies, women
Hmm.
only represent 10.4% of CEOs out there. And as a whole, in terms of major corporations worldwide, women only represent 5.2% of the major CEO corporations out there. And so I think the evolution has been shifting over time. And so as we're in this stage here, women are finally say, hey, you know what? We have the same, we're just as capable. And from my perspective, women in many situations are much more capable, and much more wiser, and much more, they just possess so much more talent, and they're more astute in many different ways. Not saying that men are not smart or astute, but men, we don't work and we don't operate as a whole, as a collective. Women tends to be more nurturing. Women tends to work in a collective cohort. Women tends to uplift each other a lot easier than men. We tend to go out there and be solopreneurs, whereas women, even though you may be a single owner in the company, but you tend to congregate with other women, and hold up each other's arms in those ways. So I think it's just a natural progression, and so now that we're at a point where women feel that we have the ability to go out there and start businesses. You know what? I don't necessarily have to be in corporate America. I can start my own business. And I think that's
Yeah.
a lot of the big shift is happening, because now they realize that opportunities are there for them to seize. And so this is just the evolution of transition and change.
I think too, if we look at the dates, so that big jump from 2019 to 2023, obviously COVID happened during that time. And I think that COVID, there was so many negatives about COVID, and we all know that, but there were some positives that came out of it. And I think one of the positives were, and this is my own opinion, so I don't have anything to back this up. This is I'm just looking at the numbers and making a assumption about it, but that people started working from home and then seeing this idea, there was some freedom that came with working from home, some autonomy, and then wanting to move to being entrepreneurs, their own boss, doing it their own way, and also building that wealth that comes from entrepreneurship. So that when the survey was given for why women are wanting to become entrepreneurs, there was two things that were talked about. It was that flexibility and that autonomy over themselves, their family, their time. but also the ability to build wealth, not being stuck in the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck or working for somebody else, making someone else rich and not making your own family rich. So I think that that is a huge kind of jump into what we want to talk about next, which is women in government contracting. I mean, that's, I would say, a a huge reasoning of why women want to get into government contracting, and not even getting government contracting, but maybe they already have a business and they're just wanting to expand that reach to the government contracting side, is those two things, flexibility and then the ability to build wealth.
Well, let me ask you this question here, Lainey, because you've been in the corporate world for a little while, and but you chose this path as an entrepreneur. What are your specific reasons of why you're an entrepreneur versus just being corporate America?
Um, I think, I mean, those are my reasoning. It was really interesting. I read an article, and I wish I knew what the article was. You can probably just Google it, but it was talking about how economicists thought like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that we already would be at a 20-hour work week now, just because of the advancements and everything, that we would no longer have to work as hard for the work we produce. And I, coming from corporate America, that was something that I always had issues with, was not working a 40-hour work week. I want to do the best that I can and I want to work hard, but it was the fact that I could finish my work in 2 hours, but I had to sit there for the rest of the 6 hours and not only waste my time but waste other people's time. There wasn't autonomy over getting to build things and kind of getting to take on as much work as that you could handle with your workload. And that's what I didn't like. I don't want to be bored. I want to do what I need to do. And so that was one of the reasons I got out. But also, I think being an entrepreneur, and Abe, we kind of have a lot in common of being serial entrepreneurs. So, we love business ideas, but creating that flexibility and also that wealth for your family. And when I say wealth, I don't necessarily mean becoming a billionaire. Obviously, I think that's people's goals. You want to be well off, but the wealth, more than just a money side of wealth. Getting to attend your, I don't have kids yet, but even just getting it to attend family um events, being with that, I've had some sick relatives lately, and this gives me the flexibility that I can go visit them but still work from home when I need to and get it done if I have to work at night or something like that. It gives you that flexibility, and that I think is wealth. That's rich, of being with your family, but also building them up for future generations. And I think you would agree with that too, Abe's kind of your reasoning for entrepreneurship, or is it different? Tell me if it's different.
Well, absolutely. The flexibility of time, right, where you control your own time, because the uh, it's extremely challenging when you have to clock in and clock out at somebody else's command. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you may work harder, you may sometimes even work more hours, but you have the ability to say, I'm going to take today off, or like next week. Just for some of you, this is the beginning of the fishing season. So next week, I'm going to take Friday off. My brother and I, we're going to go do some overnight fishing and on the border of Georgia and South Carolina at Lake Russell, do some striper and some white bass fishing. And so we're going to spend, Thursday night and Friday morning fishing, and then come on back. And so if you want some fish, we're probably going to bring back coolers and coolers of fish. So come join us. If you want to come fishing with us, you're welcome to come fishing with us. But that's flexibility, right? Whereas if I'm working with somebody, I have to take sick leave, or I have to take a vacation day, or I have to plan that out. I can't just, you know what? It's fishing season. Let's go fishing next week. I can't just do that. And so I love the
But
flexibility.
and also, what's not seen on that other side of that is the late nights. Maybe you work till 2 in the morning so that you have that flexibility to do this. If there's something that has to be done during the day, we have that flexibility where there's late nights, there's early mornings, there's other times, there's Saturdays and Sundays that are put in that work. So, yes, we're not saying it's an easy way out to get out of doing your work, but it's more flexible, and it just gives you, there's a lot of, I think there's more opportunities than just climbing a corporate ladder. But so Abe, I have a question for you. It looked this up, and women are owning they've owned 45% of companies, 45 to 49%. How are they only winning 4.7% of contracting dollars?
Yes, in fact, that leads me to what I'm going to talk about next here. So I'm going to share my slides, and we're going to talk about uh, the lack of opportunities that women are accessing, but the tremendous amount of opportunities that women can access. And so we're going to shift this and go through a few things here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to go through a quick lesson on how to go out there and position your business so that we can be part of the change, right? Because women needs there's lots of opportunities, but women needs to go out there and get their piece of this pie here. So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about small business certifications. And now one of the questions earlier, someone asked, can someone in healthcare or someone that is in the healthcare industry, community healthcare, go out there and get government contract? There's contract opportunities for every single person out there. The second question was, can a non-US citizen go and win contracts? The answer is yes. But if you don't have if you don't have U.S. citizenship, you cannot get small business certifications. So now for commercial and private sector, yes, you can get certifications as a women-owned business, but for the SBA programs, you cannot get women's certification. But we'll cover that in a little bit. So with that, let me go ahead and dive in. I mentioned earlier, right, of why I do what I do here, and our people, I'm straight out of the jungle of Laos. So my parents made contact with the world in their generation. So think of an indigenous tribe, whether it's an African indigenous tribe or an Amazonian indigenous tribe. Well, our people were the indigenous tribe of Laos, and we live in the jungle. We make contact with the world in my parents' generation. Up until then, we did not have a written language. And so when we fled the communist regime, eventually came to the United States, I had to come and learn my ABCs and learn what the modern world is like. The running water for us was a stream running down, the hill. The things that we use, there was no such thing as electricity, right? Our refrigerator is when you wake up, the forest is your refrigerator. So that's the world that I grew up in. But also in that world, I mentioned earlier that women were treated as chattel. And culturally, that has been historically because we live in clans and societies in that way. And so a man can say, I want that young lady to be my wife. And then the parents will have no choice. The woman who has been given away as a bride to that man have no choice in that saying. Now in America, things have changed quite a bit, and so but culturally that has been the scenario. So when I really discovered government contracting and I saw the disparity, that's very close to my heart, right? How do you affect change? How do you go from a society as a whole? Because in the government market, we're not far from treating women as chattel. Because in 2008, as I mentioned earlier, women were only winning 2.8% of contracting dollars. So I'm wanting to change that, right? Not only for our society as a whole, in my community, but society in government contracting and entrepreneurship for women businesses. So that's why I do what I do here. That's why Lainey and we do this podcast here so that we can really uplift the entrepreneurs out there, specifically women entrepreneurs. But there's a lot of money out there, right? From the government, from a budget perspective, $9.6 trillion at the federal level, 6.7 trillion at the SLED level, which is state, local, and the educational institutions like universities and public school system. You're talking about $2.8 trillion. So a lot of money out there, and the checks never bounce, right? Because the government, at least we hope they never bounce. Why? Because they can print money, they can raise taxes, and they can borrow money on our behalf. Now, if we look at the total number of agencies out there, you're talking about 50 states, over 3,000 counties, 35,000 cities and township, local municipalities, 39,000 school districts, 12,000. You add up all this here, you're talking about 91,000 government agencies out there. All of these are opportunities, right, to purchase from, to go and engage these different agencies out there. They're looking for women-owned businesses. And so if we're looking at the total amount, $750 billion was awarded by the federal government in 2024. And that's equivalent to $2.9 billion every day, 360 million every hour, 6 million every second, or every minute, 100,000 every second. They buy everything you can imagine. The government is the largest customer in the world, larger than Google, larger than IBM, larger than Tesla, larger than any other corporation, because you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars that they're purchasing every single year between the federal government, which is 750, and the state and local government, which is about 1.4 trillion. You're talking about over $2 trillion that is being awarded to business every single year. And they're open for every single business. They buy everything you can imagine. So if you can imagine it, the government is buying it. Now, there are a few things that they don't buy a lot of. So if someone comes to me, someone said, will the government buy haircuts? And I'm a hairstylist. Will the government buy my services? They do haircuts, right? There are some military installations where they do have hairstylists and barbershops and so forth, but not a lot of it. And so if there's a few small niche market like that we have to reposition you to do other areas so that you can get government contract. But most everything else, there's lots of opportunities there. Now, if we look at the trends, over the last, from 2014 to 2024, government spending have increased by 88%. And so now we are going through unprecedented time, right? Because right now, Doge and President Trump, they're cutting a lot of federal spendings and so forth. So we're going to see a big dip in 2025 because we're trying to balance the deficit. Because we collect about a little bit over $6 trillion in taxes, but we are spending about $7-8 trillion a year. So we need to shrink that back down. So, but why government contracting, right? Because yes, you can do business in the private sector, but why in the government market itself? So imagine this here: having a customer who can purchase in large volume, and they can buy over and over again, and they pay their bills on time. So that's the type of customer that we're talking about here. Now, in terms of what they award to the private sector company, the average government contract is $129,000, and there's only 550,000 companies that are vendor registered in the government market itself. So I don't know in the private sector, I don't know what your average client is. It may be, maybe your average ticket is $25. Maybe your average ticket is $1,000. But in the government market, your average ticket is $129,000 in terms of your contract value. Your average customer is going to spend $129,000 with you. So of this $750 billion, there's three ways of how you can access this money. One is the open competition market. You can go out there and compete openly with everybody else. 77% of opportunities are considered open market. And then 23% is considered set aside. So this is the second way of how you go and bid on contract, is by bidding from the set aside pool, which is 23%, which is $173 billion. And the set asides to certify small businesses, which I will cover in a little bit. And then the third way of how you access contract opportunity is by being a subcontractor. When a large company, when they win a contract over $750,000, agencies and federal regulation says that they must subcontract 35% to small businesses that are certified. So if we look at this here, right, set asides is one of your shortest path of how you win government contracts. Set aside just means that the government says we want to take a percentage of contracts and only allow small business to bid on these contracts. And so they set it aside for small business competition. But the most important and the best strategy in terms of how you win contract is through sole source contract. And sole source contract means this here. The operative word is the word sole, S-O-L-E. Sole means one. So it's a direct award to one company. There's no competition. There's no lengthy procurement process, and it's price negotiated. So what does that mean? That means that if you have a relationship and you have your WSB, your women's certification, or your EDWSB certification, a contracting officer can directly award you a contract without you having to compete with anybody because it's a sole source contract. So very powerful program out there. Now, in the government market, according to SBA size standard, 99.7% of all businesses in the United States are considered small businesses. So of the 750 billion, 173 billion is set aside for small businesses, which is 23%. But that's just a small piece of the pie, right? Because large companies represent the bulk of companies out there, but they're only winning a small piece of the pie. And so Congress says, okay, we need to create these set-aside program. And I know this chart is really small for you to see, so I'm going to put this link in the chat so that you guys can have access and you can go read this chart in more detail. I'm going to zoom in for a quick second just so that you can see it, but I'm going to put this link in the chat so that you guys can actually go out there and look at the set-aside goal for every single agency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here, and so you can see a little bit better. So every agency has a small business goal. So if you look at the Department of Agriculture, their small business goal is 58%, not 35, right? 35% is the norm, but the USDA, they want to award 58% of their contracts to small businesses. If you look at the Department of Commerce, it's 37%. And if you look at set aside to women-owned businesses, the goal is 5%. That 5% of all federal spending, which is this column here, 5% of all federal spending should go to women-owned businesses. Now, there's different type of other certifications, but our focus today is on women entrepreneurship. And if you look at when a large company wins contracts, they are supposed to subcontract work 5% to women-owned businesses, which is this second to the last column here. So yes, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And if you don't win it as a prime, you can also win it as a subcontractor. And so that's really what we're saying here. So but with that, take a look at this chart yourself, because this is not the whole list of all the agencies out there. Go look at the whole list out there. Let's continue we got more things to cover here. But why do we need certifications to support women-owned businesses? So I'm going to do a quick comparison. Lockheed Martin is one company, and we're going to compare that to the women-owned businesses out there. So there's 14,307 certified women-owned businesses, whether it's either certified as a WOSB or EDWSB. 14,000 companies collectively in 2024 won $35.9 billion. One company, Lockheed Martin, they won $52 billion. So wow. 14,000 companies cannot outperform one company. So when you talk about why do we need certifications, why do we need, to support women entrepreneurship, this is a classic example, right? One company won 6.9% of all the federal dollars, whereas all of the women businesses won 4.7% of the federal dollars.
Wow.
That's disturbing. So the goal is 5%, right? The government missed the goal by $1.6 billion. Now, how do I come up with this number here? I'm going to go in here. I'm going to do a quick math, because now the SBA will not show you this math. I'm going to show you the math. So I'm going to come in here, and that's why I say I challenge the SBA. I challenge the government's reporting to Congress that we met the WSB goal. Because I'm going to come in here, I'm going to use this as a real example, and I'm going to use this data here. This is USA spending is the main data that all of the contract award are tracked. I'm going to check fiscal year 2024, just 1 year, to see if the government met the goal, right? So the first number I'm going to look at is just for 1 year, how much contract was awarded. So I'm going to look at the 2 contracts here. I'm going to show you the total number. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at it as it relates to women-owned businesses. And that's why I can openly say that I challenged the SBA in the reporting that they met the goal, because the number says they did not met the goal. Now, I love the SBA because there's a lot of good work that they do, but at the same time, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, I'm going to challenge them and call them out as well. So they awarded a total of 5,820 contracts last year to all businesses, right? And then if we look at this here, we're going to come down here. We're going to look at the dollar amount by year. And what I did was I just summarized it as 1 year as 750 billion, but it's actually 755 billion. So the actual number is 755 billion. So now that we have this number, we're going to come back in here and we're going to break this down here to the recipient type. And recipient type, we're going to only choose women-owned businesses, right? So here, I'm going to check every category of women-owned businesses in terms of how much contracts were awarded to women-owned businesses. And then now I'm going to go and resubmit this data, and we're going to check out the numbers. So in terms of the 5.8 million contracts that were awarded to women business, 525,000 projects were awarded to women-owned businesses. These are the company. These are the women-owned businesses that won the contracts right here. And then we're going to come down here. We're going to look at which agency awarded the most, right? DOD, obviously, $17 billion was awarded to women-owned business from the DOD. But we're going to look at the total dollar amount here. We're going to look at by year, right? So $35.9 billion were awarded to women-owned businesses. Now, I'm going to take my calculator, right? Because again, if I'm challenging the SBA, I'm speaking from facts. So the SBA cannot. I'm using the data. We're using real data here. 500 and so 39 billion dollars was awarded to women-owned businesses. Let me double check. Yeah, 35.9. So it's not necessarily 39, but it's 35.9. So 35.9 billion divided by 755 billion. So that comes out to 4.7% of contracting dollars. So my math is correct because I'm using data. Now the SBA will not show you these numbers. They will manipulate the number, or they will adjust. They call it adjustment, right? Adjust the number. So what does that mean? That means that we as a country, we as the government, because we're all included, we need to do a better job of supporting women entrepreneurship as it relates to government contracting itself. So now let's dive in. Let's look at women entrepreneurship and coming back to the government world here. So women,
And we had a question, and I think this is a good time to answer it. So one of the questions were, if you are a brand new business, can you get certified?
Yes. If you start your business today, you can go and get your business certified tomorrow if you have all your documentation. And so I'm going to cover that a little bit in more detail when we go through the certification component of this here. So yes, you can get it. You can start today and get certified tomorrow. Now, there's some other certification where that's not the case, but for the WOSB, EDWOSB, that is the case.
Okay.
So we need to help women get their fair share, right? Because women represents over 41%. And the new data that you just showed, Lainey, earlier is that women currently owns about 49% of the companies in the US. And so there's about 32,000 that's registered in SAM. And those that are certified is only 14,000, but those that are registered and are self-certified is 32. Women are winning just, a small percentage, and the goal, they missed the goal by $1.6 billion. Now, $1.6 billion is a lot of money.
Yes.
It's a lot of money out there. So what are the different certifications out there? 8A, SDVOSB, EDWSB. That's actually a typo here. So it's VOSB. So my bad there. So the EDWSB, ED stands for economically disadvantaged. WSB stands for women-owned small business. And then hub zone. So we're going to focus more on the WSB. So at the state level, there's the WBE, Women Business Enterprise, which is a subcomponent of DBE. So if you are a WBE, you can get your DBE certification. Now in Texas, if you're a women-owned business, you can get the hub certification. You can also get the DBE in Texas. You can get in Virginia, you can get the SWAM. SWAM stands for Small Woman and Minority Owned Certification. SWOOC in North Carolina stands for Statewide Uniform Certification. And this includes all the different subsets of women included in the SWOOC certification program. So all states have the DBE certification program for women entrepreneurs. Some states just have other designation, or they group the categorization DB included into some of these other certifications, or if they have two, it's reciprocity. So if you have one, you have the other as well. Now there's different local certifications. There's the female business enterprise for Fulton County, Cook County, and Fulton County is in Metro Atlanta. Cook County in Chicago, they have the women business enterprise. LA County has the community business enterprise, including WBE in the community business enterprise. And the different cities and townships, they have different certifications. For City of Atlanta, have the female business enterprise. Chicago has the WBE, and then Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, has a WBE certification program. And then in terms of commercial certifications for supply diversity programs, there's a WBE certification program with WeBank. So lots of different certifications that you as a woman entrepreneur can go and get these certifications. Now, one of the certifications earlier talked about, can I get certified today? Yes, if you have the certification, you can go out there and start your certification process. Now, because of time, I can't go into the documents that you need, all of the different, but I'll give you a high level of the different type of certifications that you need. One, you need to have officially registered with the Secretary of State in the state that you're in. You need to have a business license. You need to have, if you're new, you need to just have a CPA letter saying that you don't have any taxes because you're a new company. But if you've been around for a little bit, typically you need to have 3 years of tax returns. You need to have your they're going to ask you for your financial statements, your income statement, your balance sheet. They will ask if you're in the construction industry, or if you're in if you're going after the DBE certification, they're going to ask you for a list of all your equipment. If you're in logistics, they're going to ask you for your trucking. They're going to ask you for certain things like that. Some industry, they're going to ask you for your professional license. So these are just different type of documentation that they're going to ask. Go ahead and start gathering those. Now, in a future class, we're going to do a class on all of the different documentations. If you are in the process of going after your certifications, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help you talk that through a little bit. Now, there's a lot of opportunities that we talked about, right? There's just not enough small business participation, not enough women entrepreneurs in the government market itself. So there's challenges out there, right? Red tape. There's a lot of red tapes out there. And, I actually took some red tape and wrapped myself up to illustrate that, yes, red tape can actually hold you back from succeeding in the government market. And so you need to overcome the red tape, right? Some of you don't speak Governese or the language of contracting. Sometimes on average, it takes 3 years to break into the government market. And most people don't have 3 years to break into the government market. And then for some of you, like, I don't know where to start. And because it is tedious and it is a jungle out there, it's a contracting maze. And some of you say, how do I build relationship? Because, it's not, I can't go to a golfing outing with a contracting officer. Where do I find them? How do I build a relationship with them? And sometimes it's just a different culture. It's a different world, how they operate. The regulation says one thing, but culturally, they operate differently from the regulations itself. So how do you navigate the culture in the government market? So what you need is a process. You need a step-by-step formula. And so what we did was we created the 5 Ps. And I have to think back to when I came back to, I got to United States. I didn't speak English. I had to learn Jack and Jill went up the hill and my alphabets, and so forth. So when I fell in love with government contracting and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go and uplift the socially economically disadvantaged companies out there, specifically women entrepreneurs out there, I have to create an easy to understand process. And so to me, government contracting is about 5 P's. That's it. P plus P plus P plus P equals P. And so the last P is profit. So you go through 4 phases. The first phase is preparation. The second phase is promotion. The third phase is proposal. And the fourth phase is performance. And if you do that, you get to profit, right? So that's really, to me, this is government contracting. It's about 5 phases. And if you follow these phases, you get to the awards that you're looking for. Now, to further support the 5 phases, we actually came up with 12-step methodology. So I call it ASRM ROP-CC. This is an acronym because we're in the world of government contracting. We call it governese, right? So we created an acronym called ASRM ROP-CC, and this is the goddess of government contracting. And I tease my wife that if we have another daughter, we're going to name her ASRM ROP-CC. And my wife said, no more kids for us. So we only have 2. But A stands for assessment. So that's your first step. You have to assess where you are as a business. S stands for strategy. You got to have the proper strategy. How do you start? Should you be a subcontractor? Should you go and get your GSA schedule immediately? Should you be a prime contractor? Should you go and set up an office in DC, or should you start locally where you're based out of? Should you do federal work or should you do state work? Right? You got to have the right strategy. And then you have to educate yourself. You have to learn GovSpeak or Governese itself. And then you have to understand that there's registration. You have to register as a vendor. You have to go and get your small business certifications. All that falls under step number 4. Then you have to create an image. Government agencies, contracting officers, they're risk averse. So you have to create a brand that's going to speak to government buyers. If you're using abe@hotmail.com, bad. If you're using Sexy Daddy Abe, save that email account for Tinder, right? Now, I'm Tinder, I'm happily married, but I'm using that as an illustration purposes. Save your Tinder email for Tinder. You want to have a professional email address, abe@govcontractors.org or Laney at your company name.com. Don't use your Gmail. Don't use all your other general email. Use a professional email address. You need to have a capability statement. You need to have a capability video. All of that goes to your marketing, which is step number 6. And then you have to go out there, and step number 7 is build relationships. And we're going to talk a little bit more about relationship in a second. And then you got to know how to source opportunities, and then you got to know how to write proposals. And then step 10 is you perform on it. That's where you really shine, right? You perform on the work, deliver the product, deliver the services, and then stay in compliance. And step number 12, close out the opportunity, invoice, get paid, and move on to the next project. So this is your 12-step methodology. Building this here is really, really understanding that is really key to your success. So now let's talk about the relationships that you need, right? You are a vendor. You're in the middle. As a vendor, as a contractor to the government, you need relationships with the end user. You also need relationship with the contracting office and contracting officers. You need relationship with the small business advocates, the small business specialists. You also need relationship with other small businesses that have certifications that you don't have. You need a relationship with large companies because they're there to subcontract work to you, and they're there to lend you their past performance and to work with you. And then you need a capture team. You need a government contracting office, a government contracting department inside your own company. This is considered your capture team. You need proposal writers, relationship manager, cost estimators. All these different people is part of your professional team so that you can go out there and win contracts. So as a vendor, you need 6 types of relationships. Green circles represent government relationships, and these orange circles represent private sector relationships that you need. So how do you go about do this here? It is a process, right? And so what we did was we actually created a capture training program. And Lane is going to put this link in the chat. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what's included, what's in our capture management program. So what we do is we said, to really support companies, we're going to actually create a capture management program. So our capture management program is this here. It is a professional program where we teach you as a business owner, or if you are a salesperson working for another company, we teach you how to do sales in the government market. Now, in the government market, we don't call it sales. We don't call it business development. We call it capture management. And so capture management is the process of learning how to go and win government contracts. So we have a cohort that's starting up on May 15th, and it's going to be I believe, every Thursday night. And it's going to be, we're going to teach you how to be a capture manager. This program here is designated as a post-secondary educational program. It's equivalent to a master's degree. But it's a certificate program. It's approved by the state of Georgia as we're a training institution equivalent to a private university. And so this program here is actually governed. And so we actually follow the same standards that private university follow to create a program, to actually have this here as a program to help you to really learn how to do sales. So in this program, you actually receive, it's a 14-week program. You receive a business coach. You receive the Gov Fast Track Training Program. You receive the Gov LMS. We actually test you at the end, and you get a 2-day boot camp. Plus, you get your professional designation, and then we also have a 12-hour video course to help you through this process. So, lots and lots of different things here. So, if you are interested in this program here, you can actually go to the site to learn more about it. So with that, coming back to, we're going to wrap it up here in a second. Coming back to this here, I want to share a few companies that we work with. And so
and before we go into this, I just want to say that's actually how I got my start in government contracting, was doing the CCM course. It was an amazing course. That's how I met Abe, and the rest is history. I'm sitting with you on this podcast here today, but it's an amazing course. And I'll give a little bit of a brag. I was actually the valedictorian of my course, so that's exciting. But yes, you should definitely check it out. And I, a lot of times, am in a lot of the classes, just helping out and doing what I can. So I'll get to see you on every Thursday.
Yep. And yeah, you did great during the class. And that was like, what, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago or something now.
Yeah,
So it's
3
been a
years
minute.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to highlight a few companies that we work with. And now we've trained over 16,000 companies now. And businesses, in terms of total IDIQ contract, have won over $250 billion in IDIQ contracts. Total contracts, not just IDIQ. But in terms of revenue, business have won over generate over $2 billion in revenue in terms of the companies that we work with. So I'm going to just highlight a few of these here. So this is Dr. Barbara Culp, and she is retired, and she came to me. She said, "Hey, I'm kind of retired, but I want to start a business." And she was 69 years old when I met her. And I said, "Barbara, starting a business is hard work." She said, "Abe, I've always wanted to leave a legacy. And as a former educator, I used to be a principal, a teacher, but now I want to start a business." So started working with her. She got to a point where she won her first contract. It was $25,000. Now, if a retiree can go and win contracts, all of you who are not necessarily retired yet, you have the bandwidth and the ability to go out there and win contracts. This is Ellen. Ellen actually recorded a video for us here, and the link is here. She runs a training company, and she a former attorney. And she said, "Abe, I became an attorney and realized that law is not what I want to do." So she started a business. She went out there and decided to do training. She started winning contracts, but she didn't know how to get to the big contracts. So she came to our training program, the CCM program, and she said, "Hey, man, now that I've graduated, help me to really apply this here into my everyday business." And so one of the technique that I taught Ellen is this here. The reason why you're not winning the big contract is you don't have past performances to validate that you can do these big projects. So you can't bid on these big projects. So she said, well, how do I do that there? I said, well, teaming is how you get to the big contract. So she found a teaming partner, and they were able to go out there and win a $3 million contract. So that was one of her first big contracts. The video actually talks a little about what she did here. And then this is Dr. Tally. Dr. Tally is in the healthcare industry, working for Hennepin Healthcare up in Minnesota. And so she met one of the students that I was coaching at the airport, and they said, yeah, she overheard a conversation, and she kind of stepped in and she said, "Did you talk? Are you talking about government contracting? I'm interested in learning more. Tell me more." And so the person, she's, she is a coaching client and a former graduate of the CCM program. She said, "Yeah, it's this guy. His name is Abe, and he taught me how to go out there and win contracts." So she connected Dr. Patricia connected Dr. Tally to myself, and it turns out we're from the same tribe, the same
Wow.
community. And when I actually the Hmong community, and so when I actually went up to Minnesota to meet her in person, her husband is actually my nephew. So
What?
what a small world, right? And so total stranger meeting at the airport. And when I went there last year to meet her and her husband, we started tracing our family roots. And as it turns out, he's actually a nephew, of, like a nephew, which is like, because we follow our family history up to about 250 years ago. And so he turns out to be one of my long lost nephews, so which was pretty awesome. But she went through our pony program. She recently won 5 contracts. So we use different tools, right? But I want to highlight one of our future company that is going to be a future winner. Uh, Businesses they become part of our community, and we have the GovCon community. So Effie, she's actually here with us today. Effie is our member of the month, and she's been hanging around. She's been learning, implementing these things here. And so she's getting closer and closer to win her first contract. But that's really how it starts, right? You build yourself, you hang around, keep learning how to speak Governese, implement the things that you're learning. And so really just a shout out to Effie, who has been really a ambassador for GCA. She's part of our community. She's implementing things she's learning. And Effie, very encouraged of just, we honor you by just being part of the community and just being an ambassador for GCA. But we want you to be successful. And so really, this is an opportunity to really shout out to you. If you're in the facilities industry, if you're in the lawn care industry, Effie can be your teaming partner.
Mhm.
So shout out to Effie for being part of the GovCon community. Now, if you don't know what the GovCon community is, I'm going to quickly show you what that is. And so the GovCon community is our government contracting community. And so if you come in here and you can see, Effie is our highlighted member of the month. So this is her in here. And so if as a part of the community, you can come in here and you can do different things, right? You can come and see all the latest news that's happening in the government market. So we track all of the news every single week, really almost every day. We bring in the news that's happening in the government world. We also share our success, our challenges together. We also post events in here. We bring in all of the events that's happening in the government market, anything that we can find. We bring it and put it into one place so you can say, what can I do today? I've got some time. Where can I attend and so forth? So we got events happening. Now we also have events. GCA, we have our own events as well. So we do host our own events as well. And as a member, you can attend these events, or you can attend these events as a guest. And then we put together different resources. We have free resources in here. So if you are looking for an unsolicited proposal template, if you're looking for a capability statement template, we put different resources in here. And then just lots of other different things. And so right now we are doing a special, and we're going to give everybody who's joining us today in this podcast a 50% discount to be a member of the GovCon community. So Lainey's going to put that link into the chat if you're interested in being a part of the community. is 50%. And here's the thing, you can become a member, and if you just want to test it out, you can become a member for $1, and just test it out for $1. And if you like it, continue. If you don't like it, it costs you $1 to be a member in the community. And then so this is super awesome. You come, you look for teaming partner. One cool thing that we're doing is we have what's called Teaming Tuesday. And Teaming Tuesday is where you can come and you can pitch yourself. You can say, hey, this is who I am. I'm looking for this type of teaming partner. Or if you are a service provider, you can come and say, hey, I do accounting work, or I do proposal writing. You can come and share what you're doing to the community. So we have an upcoming one on Tuesday, April 1st. So it's coming up in 2 weeks. So come and attend this upcoming Teaming Tuesday, where you can pitch yourself or your company to the community. So with that, Lainey, want to see if you have any other comments before we wrap it up, and see if there's any questions from the community here. So.
Yeah, I don't think there's any questions that's come through, but if you have any last minute questions, please put them in the chat. I did want to make a couple announcements. So tomorrow, Abe is going to be teaching a really exciting class on nonprofits and government contracting, and diversifying your funding. So I'm going to put that link in the chat, and he's actually doing an in-person event, which he doesn't do a lot of, but you can join virtually. So if you're not near us, you can join virtually and still enjoy this class. I think it's going to be an amazing resource, and I'm really excited. Both me and Abe will be there for that. And then I also want to put my class. So my class is just a in-person class, but it's for grant writing. So if you're nonprofit, you're wanting to get into it, to advanced grant writing, I'm going to put that in there as well. And then next week's podcast, I'm really excited about, this is grants and contracts. So we talk about the contracting side and we talk about the nonprofit side and what that looks like. Before I do that, the community has something really cool too that Abe did not mention, but it has a grants page on it. And I actually have a lot of grants for women-owned small businesses that are in there, and I constantly add those. So that's definitely something to check out as part of the community, because there could be some funding for your small business. But next week's episode is going to be on decoding grant jargon. So this is going to be something that's really good to just kind of demystify what that looks like. And I'm really excited for everybody to be there. We're every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. And I'm going to put that link in the chat so that you can go ahead and register and you don't miss that.
Well, I'm so excited that all of you guys are joining us and hanging out with us to the very end here. And if you are watching this on replay, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. That's how you can give back to us. And if you are a part of our community, join us live here. It's been really fun hanging out with you. Join us next week, and we're going to talk about demystifying the grant world and learning all the jargons. And if you want to hang out with me tomorrow, I'm going to really talk about at this class how you as a nonprofit can diversify your business and get contracts, and how you can actually start a for-profit as a subsidiary of your nonprofit to go out there and generate more revenue or more funding. In the grant world, you call it funding, but if you start up a for-profit organization, it's called revenue. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So the link's there. Come join us. And with that, you are one contract away.
And you are one grant away. I saw that we had a comment come in right quick. So before we log off, I wanted to put this. If you ever want to rewatch any of our podcasts, this is the link to rewatch the podcast. They are recorded each week, and we have those posted on our live section on our YouTube. So be sure to check that out. And remember, you're only one grant away. So we will see y'all next week.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.